Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. The signal came without warning, pinging across the monitoring stations of orbital defense platform Helix 9 with a signature that hadn't been used in a century and a half. Lieutenant Javier Ortega nearly spilled his synthetic coffee when the alert flashed across his screen. "That can't be right," he muttered, fingers flying across the interface. "System verify signal authenticity." Signal verified. Transponder matches S. Hyperion reported missing 153 years ago, replied the calm artificial voice. Javier's heart raced as he opened a priority channel. "Director Nakamura, we have a situation." Within 6 hours, every available telescope and sensor array in the solar system had locked onto the approaching vessel. The S. Hyperion, or something claiming to be it, was approaching Earth at sublight speed, its hull altered and expanded in ways that defied conventional engineering. Director Himari Nakamura stood in the central command hub of Lunar Base Artemis, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic projection of the approaching ship. At 62, she'd spent her career studying the mysterious disappearances of early interstellar vessels, particularly the Hyperion, Earth's most advanced exploration ship that had vanished without trace during mankind's first push toward the stars. "Magnify Sector 4, she ordered, pointing to an irregular protrusion along the ship's hull. The image zoomed in, revealing what appeared to be organic-like structures fused seamlessly with the metallic components. "Those structures weren't part of the original design," noted Colonel Jackson Reeves, the military liaison assigned to the situation. His massive frame towered over the other analysts, eyes narrowed with suspicion. "This thing's been modified." "Or it evolved," whispered Dr. Prisha Patel, the exobiologist who'd been hastily flown in from Mars Colony. "Those formations resemble dendritic patterns, almost like neural pathways." The ship continued its approach, maintaining radio silence despite all attempts at communication. It entered high Earth orbit and simply stopped, hanging above the planet like a metallic sentinel. "We need to board it," Nakamura finally decided, after hours of fruitless attempts to establish contact. "Assemble a team, security, scientific specialists, and someone who knows the original Hyperion inside and out." That someone was Professor Damian Rhodes, great-grandson of the Hyperion's chief engineer. At 78, Rhodes was still sharp as a plasma cutter, with intimate knowledge of the ship's original systems passed down through family archives. "The Hyperion was designed to last decades, not centuries," Rhodes commented as he reviewed the scans. "Whatever happened to it out there, it's not just surviving, it's thriving." The insertion team assembled within 24 hours, a 12-person crew representing humanity's best chance at understanding what had happened to the long-lost vessel. Leading the military contingent was Captain Valeria Torres, a veteran of the Jupiter conflict with nerves of steel and a reputation for thinking clearly in impossible situations. "We go in, we assess, we document," Torres briefed her team aboard their shuttle. "Any sign of biological contamination or hostile intent, we retreat immediately, clear." Their shuttle approached the altered Hyperion cautiously. Up close, the modifications were even more unsettling. The hull rippled with iridescent patterns that shifted like oil on water, and what looked like veins pulsed beneath translucent sections. "It's breathing," whispered Lieutenant Amory Washington, the team's communications specialist. No one contradicted him. They docked at what appeared to be the original airlock, though now surrounded by those same organic metallic hybrid structures. The team suited up in full hazard gear before proceeding. "Atmosphere readings show oxygen levels similar to Earth standard," reported Dr. Felix Joe, checking his instruments. "Temperature slightly elevated at 26 degrees C. No immediately detectable pathogens, but that doesn't mean they're not there." Captain Torres nodded, masks stay on regardless. The airlock cycled with disturbing efficiency, as if the ship had been expecting them. As the inner door slid open, they were greeted not by darkness, but by soft, ambient lighting that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The corridor beyond was recognizable from old Hyperion schematics, but altered, the clean lines of human engineering now flowed organically, walls curving and pulsing subtly. "This is incredible," breathed Dr. Patel, scanning everything. "It's as if the ship's original materials have been reconstructed at a molecular level." They proceeded deeper, following what should have been the main corridor toward the bridge. The further they went, the more pronounced the changes became. Lattices of crystalline structures grew from junctions, emitting that same soft light. Periodically, pulses of energy would race through these structures like signals in a nervous system. "Professor Rhodes," Torres called, "is any of this familiar to you?" The old man shook his head, his eyes wide behind his visor. The layout follows the original blueprints, but everything else, this is something entirely new. They reached what should have been the command center, but found instead a chamber that had expanded to 3 times its original size. In the center floated what appeared to be a human figure, suspended in a column of shifting light. Surrounding this column were dozens of pods, each containing what looked like a human body. "My God," Dr. Joe whispered, "the crew." Captain Torres approached one of the pods cautiously, wiping condensation from its surface to reveal a face. The woman inside appeared to be sleeping peacefully, but her skin had an unnatural metallic sheen, and fine filaments extended from her temples into the pod's inner lining. "Life signs?" Torres asked. Joe scanned the pod. "Yes and no. Their biological functions are suspended, but there's intense neural activity. It's like they're all connected to something." Professor Rhodes had wandered to a terminal that still resembled original Hyperion technology. "The ship's logs might still be accessible," he murmured, his gnarled fingers working the controls with surprising dexterity. The screens suddenly activated, displaying not text but rapid sequences of images. Stars, nebulae, strange geometric structures floating in deep space, creatures of light and matter intertwined. "What are we seeing?" Torres demanded. "Their journey," Rhodes whispered, "where they've been all this time." Before anyone could respond, the suspended figure in the center of the room opened its eyes, glowing with an inner light that was definitely not human. As one, the team stepped back, weapons raised instinctively. The figure, once human, now something more, gazed at them with eyes that seemed to see beyond physical space. When it spoke, the voice resonated not just in their ears but in their minds. "We have returned to warn you," it said in a voice like many speaking as one. "What lies beyond the void has noticed humanity's first steps, and it hungers." The figure suspended in light descended slowly until its feet touched the floor of the command center. Captain Torres kept her weapon trained on it, though some instinct told her it would be useless against whatever this entity had become. "Identify yourself," Torres demanded, her voice steady despite the rapid pounding of her heart. The figure tilted its head, studying them with those luminous eyes. Upon closer inspection, they could see it had once been a man, perhaps in his 40s when the transformation occurred. His skin had a metallic sheen similar to the crew in the pods, with similar filaments embedded along his temples and spine. "I am Captain Julian Blackwood," the figure replied, its voice now sounding more human yet still carrying that strange harmonic quality. "Or what remains of him. We are integrated now." Dr. Patel stepped forward cautiously. "Integrated with what exactly?" Blackwood, or the entity using his form, gestured to the walls around them. "With the Meridian, that is what they call themselves. A civilization that existed when your son was young." Professor Rhodes had gone pale, his hands trembling as he studied the terminal. "The ship's logs, they found something out there. A structure artificial but ancient, floating in deep space beyond the Hydra sector." "The beacon," Blackwood confirmed, "left behind to find worthy vessels." Lieutenant Washington edged closer to Torres. "Captain, I'm picking up unusual electromagnetic activity. It's increasing throughout the ship." Torres nodded sharply. "Everyone maintain distance. Dr. Joe, continue monitoring vital signs of the crew in those pods." Joe was already scanning the nearest pods with growing concern. Their neural patterns are synchronizing, almost like they're forming a network. The walls around them pulsed with light, a ripple effect spreading outward from where Blackwood stood. The ship was responding to his presence, or perhaps he was an extension of the ship itself. "We encountered the beacon 153 of your years ago," Blackwood continued, walking slowly around the chamber. Each step left momentary impressions in the floor, like footprints in sand before they reformed. "It called to us across the void. When we investigated, we found something beyond human comprehension, a gateway to ascension." "Ascension to what?" Dr. Patel asked, her scientific curiosity temporarily overriding her fear. "To join the Meridian Collective, to transcend physical limitations." Blackwood's eyes flared brighter. Not all were willing, some resisted. As if on cue, a panel slid open in the far wall, revealing a darkened chamber. Torres signaled 2 of her security team to investigate. They approached cautiously, sweeping their lights into the space. "Captain," one called, voice tight with horror, "you need to see this." The room contained dozens more pods, but unlike the peaceful occupants in the main chamber, these held grotesque figures. Human bodies twisted and malformed, frozen in poses of agony. Some had metallic growths bursting through their skin, others had melded with ship components in horrific fusions of flesh and machinery. "The failures," Blackwood stated dispassionately. "Those whose minds rejected integration but whose bodies had already begun the process." Tors felt bile rise in her throat. This is what happens when someone says no to your ascension. Transformation requires harmony between mind and matter, Blackwood replied. Resistance creates dissonance. Professor Rhodes had accessed more of the ship's records, his face ashen as he scrolled through data. It's all here, the integration protocol. It's a process that rewrites human DNA while simultaneously merging consciousness with this Meridian network. Why return to Earth now? Tors pressed, motioning her team to start gathering samples and evidence. Whatever was happening here, Earth needed to know the full extent of it. Blackwood's expression shifted subtly. Was that concern? The beacon is not alone. There are others awakening throughout this region of space. Humanity's expansion will inevitably encounter them. We return to prepare you. Prepare us for what? Tors demanded. For the choice, Blackwood gestured, and the central column of light expanded, projecting three-dimensional star charts throughout the chamber. Red markers pulsed at various locations. These are the locations of other beacons. The Meridian left them as seeds waiting for species ready to join the collective. Dr. Joe had moved to another terminal, downloading what data he could. Captain, these medical readings. The integration process rewrites neural pathways first, then begins physical alterations. It's unlike anything in our xenobiology records. The first stage has already begun, Blackwood announced, turning to face Washington, who had unconsciously drifted closer to the central light column. The communications specialist stood transfixed, eyes wide and unblinking. A thin trickle of silvery fluid ran from his nose. Washington, Tors barked, step back now. Lieutenant Washington didn't respond. His hands had begun to tremble, and the same metallic sheen was spreading across his skin where the light touched him. The compatible are called first, Blackwood explained. His mind recognized the pattern. Tors lunged forward, grabbing Washington and dragging him away from the light. Dr. Joe, medical assistance now. Washington collapsed, convulsing as Joe rushed to his side. The medical officer administered a sedative, but Washington's eyes remained open, unblinking, now showing faint traces of the same luminescence as Blackwood's. What have you done to him? Tors demanded, weapon now pointed directly at Blackwood's head. I have done nothing. The ship recognized his potential. The process has only just begun. It can still be halted at this stage. Blackwood tilted his head. Though why would you deny him transcendence? Professor Rhodes had backed away from the terminal, joining Tors. This is a virus, he whispered. A technological and biological virus designed to convert humans into whatever they are. Not a virus, Blackwood corrected, an evolution, a gift. A series of tremors ran through the ship, and several pods in the main chamber began to open with a hiss of escaping gases. The figures inside, transformed crew members similar to Blackwood, opened their eyes in perfect synchronization. Captain, Dr. Patel urged, we need to get Washington back to our shuttle. If this transformation is progressive, we might still be able to reverse it. Tors nodded sharply. Team, prepare to fall back. Gather all the data you can, but we're leaving now. As two security officers lifted the semi-conscious Washington, Blackwood stepped forward. You cannot simply leave. The beacon has already detected your planet. The choice must be made by all of humanity. We'll make our choice, Tors retorted, with all the facts and without coercion. The transformed crew members were now emerging from their pods, moving with eerie coordination. They didn't approach aggressively, but formed a loose circle around the Earth team. The integration protocol has safeguards, Blackwood said. Once initiated within a population, it must reach completion or failure will result in complete system collapse. Tors frowned, meaning what exactly? Meaning, Professor Rhodes translated grimly, that they've started a process they believe can't be stopped. Either we all transform or those who begin transformation will suffer the same fate as the failures, Blackwood finished, gesturing toward the chamber of twisted bodies. We're leaving, Tors stated firmly, and we're taking Lieutenant Washington with us. Blackwood studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Go, take your findings to your leaders, but know this, the Hyperion is only the harbinger. The beacon has awakened and it will not wait forever. As the team retreated toward the airlock, Washington cradled between two security officers, the transformed crew made no move to stop them. The ship itself seemed to pulse around them, corridors shifting subtly as if breathing. At the airlock, Tors paused, looking back at Blackwood, who had followed at a distance. Why give us a choice at all? If this meridian is so powerful, why not simply force transformation? Blackwood's luminous eyes dimmed slightly. Because unwilling integration leads to abomination. The meridian requires harmony, minds that choose ascension. That is why we returned, to show you the glory that awaits, not to conquer. As the team sealed themselves in the shuttle and disengaged from the transformed Hyperion, Professor Rhodes stared out the viewport at the ship that had once represented humanity's greatest achievement in space exploration. Whatever happens, he murmured, nothing will be the same again. In medical quarantine aboard the shuttle, Lieutenant Washington's eyes snapped open, glowing with the same ethereal light as Blackwood's. They're coming, he whispered, they're all coming home. The quarantine facility beneath Geneva's Global Defense Headquarters hummed with activity as doctors and scientists worked frantically to understand what was happening to Lieutenant Amory Washington. Behind triple-sealed containment glass, the communications specialist lay strapped to a medical bed, his skin now covered in a network of fine metallic lines that pulsed with faint blue light. His cellular structure is changing at the molecular level, Dr. Naomi Fujita explained, sliding her findings across the conference table to Director Nakamura. The transformation is progressing despite our attempts to halt it. Captain Torres sat rigidly in her chair, dark circles under her eyes from lack of sleep. It had been 72 hours since their return from the Hyperion, and the situation was deteriorating rapidly. And the rest of the boarding team? Nakamura asked, her voice tight with concern. All showing varying degrees of exposure, Dr. Fujita replied. Captain Torres and Professor Rhodes have the lowest levels, but everyone who boarded that ship has been affected. Torres rubbed her temples, trying to ignore the persistent whispers at the edge of her consciousness, sounds that hadn't been there before the Hyperion. We're hearing things, she admitted. Voices, not distinct words, but impressions. Professor Rhodes nodded, his aged hands trembling slightly as he pulled up images on his tablet. The ship's logs contained references to this, a psychic network connecting all transformed individuals. They called it the Chorus. The question remains, Colonel Reeves interjected, is this an invasion? The Hyperion remains in orbit, taking no hostile action, but if it can transform humans into these hybrids, the security implications are catastrophic. A scientist Torres didn't recognize, a neurologist, according to his badge, cleared his throat. We've been monitoring Lieutenant Washington's brain activity. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. Neural pathways reorganizing, forming new connections. And there are patterns within that activity that suggest communication. With whom? Nakamura demanded. The Hyperion, presumably, or whatever consciousness now controls it. The conference room doors slid open and Dr. Joe entered looking haggard. Washington is conscious. He's asking to speak with Captain Torres. Torres felt a chill run down her spine. The whispers in her mind grew momentarily louder, then subsided. She nodded once, rising from her chair. I'll talk to him. Inside the containment area, Torres donned a full hazmat suit before entering Washington's room, though the doctors had already confirmed that whatever was happening to him couldn't be transmitted through conventional means. It required direct exposure to the energy field on the Hyperion. Washington turned his head as she entered, his eyes now fully transformed, glowing pupils surrounded by metallic irises that shifted and adjusted like camera apertures. Captain, he greeted her, his voice eerily calm, they wanted me to show you. Torres approached cautiously. Show me what, Lieutenant? What's coming? Washington closed his eyes, and suddenly Torres' mind was flooded with images, vast geometric structures floating in deep space, beings of light and energy moving between stars, civilizations rising and falling across millennia. She gasped, staggering backward as the visions overwhelmed her senses. Then, as quickly as they had come, they vanished, leaving her breathing heavily. What was that? She demanded. The Meridian's history, Washington replied. They've watched this galaxy for millions of years. They've seen species like ours rise, reach for the stars, and then meet the others. Others? There are older things in the darkness between stars, Captain. The Meridian's transformation is a gift, a way to ascend beyond physical form before those things find us. They've found every civilization that reaches too far into space. Torres frowned, and I'm supposed to just believe this, that this integration is for our protection rather than conquest. Washington's metallic features formed a sad smile. You've already begun to change, Captain. You hear them, don't you? The whispers, that's the chorus calling you home. Torres felt a cold weight in her stomach. The whispers had indeed grown stronger since entering this room, forming patterns that almost, but not quite, resolved into understandable words. The process can't be reversed, Washington continued, but it can be embraced. Those who fight it become wrong, trapped between states. Torres thought of the twisted bodies they'd seen on the Hyperion, and if humanity refuses this gift, then you'll face what comes alone, The beacons are awakening across this sector of space. The others will notice. They always do. Back in the conference room, the situation had deteriorated further. New reports were flooding in from astronomical observatories worldwide. The Hyperion was emitting some kind of signal, directed outward toward deep space. It started approximately 20 minutes ago, a harried technician explained. Powerful bursts of energy unlike anything in our records. It's calling them, Professor Rhodes whispered, a dawning horror in his eyes. Either the Meridian or these others Washington mentioned. Colonel Reeves slammed his fist on the table. We need to destroy that ship now before whatever it's signaling arrives. And risk provoking an interstellar incident, Nakamura countered. We don't even understand what we're dealing with. The debate was interrupted when Torres returned, her expression grave. Washington is changing more rapidly now, and he's not the only one. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing faint metallic traceries beginning to form under her skin. It's happening to all of us who boarded. Dr. Fujita immediately moved to examine Torres' arm, scanning it with a handheld device. The transformation is accelerating in all exposed personnel. Whatever this is, it's adaptive, evolving to overcome our containment measures. A junior officer burst into the room, face pale. Director, we're getting reports of civilians experiencing symptoms, people who have never been near the Hyperion or the quarantine facility. Impossible, Reeves growled, the containment protocols. It's not a physical contagion, Torres interrupted, the whispers in her mind now forming into clearer patterns. It's spreading through the chorus. Anyone who's been in prolonged contact with an affected person is being called. Professor Rhodes had gone to the window, staring up at the night sky where the Hyperion would be orbiting, invisible to the naked eye. It's beginning, just as the logs described. The integration protocol has entered its second phase, exponential expansion. How do we stop it? Nakamura demanded. I don't think we can, Rhodes replied softly. The Hyperion was sent back as a catalyst. The process has already begun. Dr. Joe's tablet chimed with an alert. He checked it, then looked up with wide eyes. Lieutenant Washington is gone. What do you mean gone? Reeves demanded. He just vanished from the containment room. The guards saw nothing. One moment he was there, the next. The conference room lights flickered, and a holographic image formed in the center of the table, Washington, his transformation now complete, his body glowing with inner light. Don't be afraid, his voice echoed both from the projection and inside their minds. The first phase of integration is always the most difficult, but I've come to help guide you. Torres felt the whispers surge into a chorus of voices, welcoming, beckoning. She fought against it, focusing on the here and now. Guide us to what exactly? To understanding, Washington replied. The Hyperion was just the beginning. 7 more vessels are returning, each carrying transformed crews. They will establish integration nexuses across Earth's continental masses. Reeves reached for his sidearm, though what good it would do against a hologram, Torres couldn't imagine. This is an invasion. No, Washington countered calmly. This is evolution. The Meridian doesn't conquer, it uplifts. Those who accept transformation will ascend, those who reject it will remain as they are. And those who have already begun the process but resist completing it? Torres asked, thinking of the horrific failures they'd seen. Washington's expression grew solemn. They will suffer. That is why I've come back, to prevent that suffering by helping you understand what's happening. Outside the facility, chaos was spreading. Reports flooded in of strange phenomena worldwide, electrical disturbances, unexplained lights in the sky, and people reporting visions and whispers. The Hyperion's signal had triggered something global in scale. It's too late to stop the protocol, Washington continued. But you can guide it, shape how humanity integrates with the Meridian. Professor Rhodes stepped forward, his scientific curiosity warring with fear. And what exactly is the Meridian, a species, a technology? Both and neither, Washington replied. Once they were like you, biological, limited. They achieved technological singularity and transcended physical form. Now they exist as patterns of energy and information spanning galaxies. And these others you warned about, Torres pressed. Washington's hologram flickered momentarily. Ancient, hungry, they consume civilizations that reach a certain technological threshold. The Meridian found a way to hide from them by becoming something no longer recognizable as prey. Nakamura had remained silent throughout the exchange, her analytical mind working through the implications. Now she spoke, her voice steady despite the extraordinary situation. You're offering a devil's bargain, transform or face extinction. I'm offering the truth, Washington corrected. The choice remains yours. The hologram dissolved, leaving the room in stunned silence. Moments later, alarms blared throughout the facility. Multiple unauthorized access alerts, a security officer reported over the intercom. Something's infiltrating our systems. Wait there, people, transformed like Washington. Tors felt the whispers crescendo inside her mind, forming distinct words. Now join us, ascend, become. She looked down at her arm where the metallic traceries had spread further, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The transformation was accelerating within her, bringing clarity to the voices of the chorus. They're not just coming for us, she realized aloud. They're already here inside us. Professor Rhodes nodded grimly. The real question is, do we fight the inevitable or do we try to shape it? As if in answer, the sky above Geneva lit up with aurora-like lights as the first of the 7 returning vessels entered Earth's atmosphere, carrying with it the next phase of humanity's forced evolution. The 7 ships hung in Earth's atmosphere like metallic prophecies, each positioned over a different continent. They made no aggressive moves, no demands, they simply waited, broadcasting the same harmonic signal that had begun the transformations. Inside the emergency bunker beneath Mount Geneva, world leaders gathered in unprecedented unity, the common threat transcending old rivalries. Director Nakamura addressed the assembly, her voice steady despite the exhaustion evident on her face. The transformation has affected approximately 3% of the global population, she reported. The rate is accelerating exponentially. Mathematical models suggest complete planetary integration within 30 days unless we find a way to halt the process. The screens around the chamber displayed images from around the world, people with metallic traceries spreading across their skin, eyes beginning to glow with that uncanny inner light. In some cities, the transformed had gathered in vast, silent circles, seemingly communing with one another through the mysterious chorus. Captain Tors watched from the back of the room, fighting to maintain her focus as the whispers in her mind grew steadily louder. The metallic patterns now covered most of her arms and had begun spreading across her torso. Dr. Fujita had estimated she had perhaps 3 days before her transformation reached the critical point of no return. What about military options? Demanded the U.S. president, his face grim. Can we destroy the vessels? Colonel Reeves stepped forward, looking equally exhausted. We've attempted strikes against the ship over North America. Conventional weapons were deflected by some kind of energy field. Nuclear options remain on the table, but we don't know what would happen to those already transforming if the ships were destroyed, Professor Rhodes finished, his voice cracking with age and stress. The process might accelerate or worse, leave millions trapped in a failed state of transformation. Tors approached the central table, aware of how her partially transformed appearance unsettled many present. There's something else you need to know. The chorus, the psychic network connecting the transformed, it's growing stronger. I can hear them more clearly now. There, watching something approaching. The others, Nakamura asked sharply. Tors nodded. According to what I'm sensing, the activation of so many beacons has drawn attention. Whatever these entities are, they'll reach our solar system within weeks. The chamber erupted in voices, fear and anger mingling as the full implications became clear. They were caught between transformation and potential extinction, with precious little time to decide. The Chinese premier rose, silencing the room with a raised hand. We need to speak directly with those who lead this, Meridian, not through intermediaries like Lieutenant Washington, but those who make decisions. As if in response to his words, the lights in the bunker dimmed momentarily. When they returned to normal, Captain Blackwood from the Hyperion stood in the center of the room, not as a hologram but physically present. Alongside him were 6 other figures, each bearing the marks of complete transformation, their bodies glowing softly. We heard your request, Blackwood stated simply. The Integration Council has come. Security personnel raised weapons instinctively, but Nakamura waved them down. How did you get in here? This facility is shielded against all known forms of teleportation and quantum tunneling. We didn't move through space, explained one of the other figures, a woman with Asian features whose nameplate identified her as Captain Nico Tanaka of the S Discovery, another long-lost vessel. We reshaped local reality. It's one of the abilities that comes with complete integration. Why are you doing this to us? Demanded the Brazilian president, rising from her seat. What gives you the right to force this transformation on humanity? Blackwood's luminous eyes surveyed the room. We bring evolution, not conquest. But the choice was made for us all when humanity first encountered a beacon. The integration protocol doesn't recognize political boundaries or individual sovereignty, it recognizes only potential. And those who refuse this potential, asked the Russian president coldly. Will remain untransformed, answered another of the council, a tall African man, but they will face what comes next alone. Torres stepped forward. Tell them about the others, no more riddles, no more vague threats. They deserve to know exactly what's coming. Blackwood nodded slightly, then raised his hand. The air in the center of the room shimmered, forming into a three-dimensional image of deep space. Stars glittered across the void, but between them lurked something. At first, it appeared as just a darker patch against the blackness, but as they watched, it moved with purpose, a void that consumed light and matter alike. They have no name we could pronounce, Blackwood explained. They exist partly in dimensions we cannot perceive. They feed on civilizations that reach a certain technological threshold, particularly those that master faster-than-light travel. The energy signatures draw them like beacons. And humanity is approaching this threshold, Professor Rhodes stated. You crossed it 50 years ago with the development of the Hawking Drive, Captain Tanaka confirmed. The others were already on their way. The Meridian detected them and sent us to offer an alternative to extinction. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Nakamura spoke. If what you're saying is true, you should have approached us openly. Explain the situation instead of infiltrating our bodies and minds. Would you have believed us? Blackwood asked simply. Without experiencing the chorus, without seeing the transformation, would humanity have accepted the truth? No one answered. The silent acknowledgement hung in the air. The integration offers more than survival, continued another council member. It offers transcendence, the ability to reshape matter, to communicate across vast distances instantly, to explore realities beyond physical limitations. At the cost of our humanity, the U.S. president countered. At the cost of your current form, Blackwood corrected. Your essence, your memories, your identity, your consciousness remains, but evolved, expanded. Torres felt the whispers in her mind surge into clarity, showing her visions of what humanity could become. Beings of energy and matter combined, no longer bound by physical constraints, spreading throughout the galaxy not as conquerors but as explorers and creators. You keep saying we have a choice, she said, focusing through the visions, but you've already begun transforming people without their consent. The initial catalyst required direct intervention, Blackwood acknowledged. But the final stage of integration requires conscious acceptance. Those who ultimately reject the process will revert to their original state, though they will retain the memory of what they could have become. Professor Rhodes had been studying the data flowing across his tablet throughout the exchange. He looked up, eyes wide. The others, these void entities, they're accelerating. The mathematical projections show them arriving in our solar system within days, not weeks. The council members exchanged glances, communicating silently through the chorus. They sense the activation of multiple beacons, Tanaka explained. It's drawn their attention more powerfully than we anticipated. Then we're out of time, Nakamura stated flatly. Not entirely, Blackwood replied. Those who choose integration can be completed within hours. The fully transformed can help shield this system from detection, bend light and energy around it to make Earth invisible to the others. And those who refuse, the Chinese premier asked. We cannot protect what rejects us, Blackwood said simply, but we will try to minimize the harm. The world leaders conferred rapidly, the situation demanding immediate decisions despite its unprecedented nature. As they deliberated, Torres felt her transformation accelerating, the metallic patterns now covering most of her body. The whispers had become a symphony, beautiful and terrifying in its complexity. What happens next? She asked Blackwood quietly, away from the main table. If humanity accepts integration, what do we become? Something new, he replied. Neither fully human nor fully meridian, a bridge species that carries the best of both. The meridian needs humanity's creativity, your unpredictability. You bring something valuable to the collective. And Earth's remains your home, though many will choose to journey outward. There are countless beacons waiting to be awakened, countless worlds to explore. Nakamura approached them, her decision evident in her bearing. The Council has reached a preliminary agreement. We will inform our populations of the situation in full, the threat, the transformation, the choice. Each individual must be allowed to decide for themselves. Blackwood nodded, a wise approach, but understand time is critical. The others will not wait for democratic processes. As if emphasizing his point, the bunker's sensors blared warnings. On the main screen, astronomical data showed a distortion in space near Neptune's orbit, a darkness spreading, consuming light. They're here, Torres whispered, the chorus in her mind shrieking warnings. The Integration Council moved as one, their bodies glowing brighter. We must prepare, Tanaka announced. Those who wish to complete their transformation come with us. Those who choose to remain human, we wish you strength. Torres looked at Nakamura, torn between duty and the irresistible pull of the chorus. Director. Nakamura's expression softened slightly. Follow your path, Captain. Report back if you can. As Tor stepped toward the council, she felt the final barriers in her mind dissolving. The transformation surged through her body, metallic patterns completing their intricate designs across her skin. Knowledge flooded her consciousness, the true nature of reality, the history of the Meridian, the ancient conflict with the others that had shaped galaxies. She turned back once more to look at the assembled leaders of humanity, still human, still limited, but facing the greatest decision in their species' history with courage. Whatever you decide, she told them, her voice now carrying the harmonic resonance of the transformed, humanity will survive, one way or another. As Tors and the council vanished in a burst of light, Professor Rhodes looked up at the astronomical displays showing the approaching darkness. He turned to Nakamura with a grim smile. Well, Director, he said quietly, it seems the universe is stranger than we ever imagined. And now we must decide, do we remain as we are and face extinction, or do we become something new and face the unknown? Outside the bunker, across the planet, millions were already making that choice as the 7 ships continued their silent vigil, waiting for humanity's collective answer to the ultimate question of evolution. Nakamura stared at the empty space where Tors had stood moments before. The question isn't whether we survive, she murmured. It's whether what survives will still be us. As the darkness crept closer to Earth, time for philosophical debate ran out. Humanity stood at the crossroads between extinction, transformation, and perhaps something yet unimagined, a third path that neither the Meridian nor the others had foreseen. The choice of worlds had begun.